I also think we learn the most about a team that first week, right? All offseason, we're predicting, we're guessing, we're hoping, we're maybe making our best in inferences. But then you see him on the field and you go, oh, I underestimated XYZ. Let's start with Duke, right? They play Friday. We'll go in order of kickoff times. I'm predicting that Duke gets in more shootouts than we expect them to be in. In recent years under Mike Elko, they won a lot of games like 19-17.
Oh, defensive grind.
They won a lot of games where they scored 21, and it felt like they scored 40 because the defense has been one of the better ones in the ACC. Last year, if I'm not mistaken, they were the number one scoring defense in the conference, gave up the fewest points per game. I don't see that happening this year for a few reasons. My biggest probably overreaction, right? Overreacting to week one is such a cliche, but my biggest, I admit it's an overreaction, but I can't stop myself from thinking it, is the fear of Duke's running game. I watched them not be able to run the ball effectively against Elon. Elon, an FCS school, a good FCS school, but an FCS school nonetheless. When FBS teams struggle against FCS teams, you see coaches get boring and just run it at them because they know we're bigger, faster, stronger. We can just mow them down. Duke couldn't do that against Elon. And my overreaction is that's an issue. I said it earlier this week. If you can't run the ball at Elon, you can't run the ball at anyone on your schedule. So because of that, changing my predictions, I think Malik Murphy will be higher in the passing standings than we expected by simple nature of, well, you run the ball for no yards on first down. Now you got 2nd and 10, and suddenly you're slinging it.
And they showed in that game against Elon they were not afraid to go deep.
And I think along those lines, Jordan Moore will be higher in the receiving standings than we expected. Jordan Moore was an interesting case preseason for Duke because he was not one of the leading vote getters when it came to all ACC performers. But he was, I believe, 8th in Offensive Player of the Year or Player of the Year votes. So there were a few out there that were really high on Jordan Moore. And I think I'm seeing why. It's not only because Jordan Moore is really good and he's a highlight reel, but also because there's going to be an element of every third down we got to look his way, and we might be in a few behind the down and distance third downs because of the running game. Also, I like I don't know if you saw it. I watched the mic'd up of Malik Murphy, their quarterback. Okay. First of all, smooth guy, chill, hanging out. But I loved an interaction between him and Jordan Moore. He called him J-Mo, Jordan Moore. He basically went over to Jordan Moore and said, hey, J-Mo, I'm going to look off that safety and throw that bleep up. I'm gonna look the safety off, and I'm going to give you a chance to throw a deep ball. And then, of course, the way that Duke edits it together in their YouTube video, they cut immediately to the next drive, which had Malik Murphy looking off the safety and throwing a long touchdown to Jordan Moore. And then Malik Murphy went up to Jordan Moore after and said, I bleep and told you. Exactly. Over and over again. It was a touchdown. That is the type of recognition and awareness and trust of, listen, if they're manning you up, I'm not even going to think about this. I'm going to get the safety the heck out of there, and I'm giving you a chance. And once you make good on that a few times, the quarterback becomes more and more confident putting you in those situations. So all of that basically says, if you're struggling running the ball, if you depend on big pass plays, your defense is going to be on the field a lot. Because when you score, you'll score quick. When you don't score, you're not going to take much time off the clock, and you're going to go right back to the bench. And your defense is going to be on the field a lot and be put in some tough situations, thus shootouts. We don't usually think of Duke, like, hey, let's win this one 34-31. Mm-hmm. You think of Duke, let's win this one 21-14. I think there's going to be more of the former than the latter.
I think Jordan Moore is basically going to be Malik Murphy's Adam Thielen to what he was to
Adam
Bryce
Thielen,
Young.
Or to go across the triangle and stay in college, what Casey Concepcion was for NC State last year.
Basically.
Which is like, hey, there's going to be quarters where we know if a play is going to get made offensively, It's going to be that guy. And by the way, that's a compliment to those guys. They're good enough to be number one on the scouting report, be circled by the defense, and still make plays.
Yeah, say other teams know it, and they still make the play.
And maybe Jaquez Moore out of the backfield can make some big plays happen, but I wouldn't depend on that running game to grind you. Like, you're not going to body blow and then, hey, in the fourth quarter we started making it work. You're gonna have to hunt for big plays in both the passing and running game. UNC. What am I predicting for UNC after a first week that had it all? Do you ever watch now I can't think of his name, and this was an unplanned reference. I don't know why I do this to myself. Saturday Night Live, the Bill Hader, where he's covering his mouth and he's, oh my gosh, it has everything. The newest club in New York has a cat that goes meow meow. Like it's I can't even describe it. I can't think of their name though. Goodness gracious. Somebody help us out on YouTube. Somebody has to know that. But to me, UNC's first game kind of had everything, right? Everything you could predict. It had, first of all, a win on the road against a Big Ten team. It had bad weather. It had
delays.
Literal delays. It had a quarterback injury. It had 35 touches for a running back. It had some big plays made by tight ends. It had a good defensive performance by Minnesota. It had P.J. Fleck and Mac Brown. It had way too many shots of the quarterback's parents in the stands as their son struggled a little bit on the field and then got hurt. Like they had a little bit of everything out there in that game. So how do you gather that information and organize it into a coherent thought moving forward? Here's what I have. UNC, out of necessity, due to the quarterback change, will study and take things from some of the great, what I call one-hit wonder teams in NFL history. The 2008 Dolphins. Anybody remember the 2008 Dolphins? I guarantee you once I say one word, you will remember the 2008 Dolphins. Wildcat. Year before, they won one game. They went 1-15. 2008, they went 11-5 and won the division.
Mm-hmm.
The only year out of like 20 that the Patriots didn't win the division. And then the next year they went back to below 500, 7-9. There was this one-hit wonder team where they took Chad Pennington off the field a bunch, who was their quarterback, and let Ricky Williams and Ronnie Brown run the Wildcat.
Mm-hmm.
And it was awesome. 2011 Broncos. Anybody remember the 2011 Broncos?
Yes, I do.
Oh, yeah, because you're a Steelers fan.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
For everybody else, I bet you as soon as I say one word, you'll know who the 2011 Broncos were. Tebow.
Yep.
Unique circumstances sometimes drive you to what some would call gimmicky, I may call change-up curveball style successful seasons. The Broncos won a bunch of games in a row, including a playoff game, throwing like 7 passes a game. And that's not because they did some studying and decided that's the best way to play football. It's because they watched and said, our quarterback can't complete a pass. The Dolphins won the division not because they looked at it and found some, hey, defenses aren't prepared for this. It's because they looked at it and said, the Patriots have won the division a bunch of times in a row. They don't seem like stopping, and Tom Brady just got hurt at the beginning of the year. Let's take our shot. And they did something new and innovative. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go that far, UNC, because Connor Harrell is better than both of those quarterback situations. But Connor Harrell isn't the passer that Max Johnson is. If he were, they would have started Connor Harrell, right? That's kind of how these things work, because we know Connor Harrell's a better runner than Max Johnson. So if he was as good of a passer, he would have been starting. Connor Harrell mixed with Omarion Hampton gives you a unique circumstance that you weren't planning on using that can be a little bit of a curveball for some of these teams. Omarion Hampton had the most carries and most total touches of any non-overtime game in his career in week 1.
35 total.
35 total, 30 carries, which is a career high in non-overtime games. 35 total touches. That's a career high in non-overtime games. And I believe 5 catches is a career high in non-overtime games. There's that double overtime game against Duke. That's where he had the most.
Yep.
That is not ideal, but you can't run away from it. He's good. He's effective. Use it. Run options. Run gimmick runs. Run the counters. Run Omarion Hampton to the right, and then fake it to Omarion Hampton to the right and send Connor Harrell to the left. He's fast enough to take advantage of that. Roll him to the left. Tell him to take off. So many of these college teams are so darn good at stopping passing offenses because they face them every single week. The only difference in week to week is, I don't know who the number of the best wide receivers. Other than that, it's spread. You spread them horizontally, you spread them vertically, and you go try to complete passes. If you can be the team that it's like, oh no, we're facing a 2002 like Chargers team, right? Where was LaDainian Tomlinson there yet?
Oh yeah.
Where LaDainian Tomlinson is the focal point that it pivots off of, and they give him so much attention that Connor Harrell can then take advantage of it elsewhere. It's a changeup. You can be the curveball. So pay attention to teams like the Dolphins in 07, the Broncos in 11, who were doing something completely different than everyone else in the league.
My prediction for UNC to help out Connor Harrell, 10-plus catches combined between Nesbitt and Copenhagen, their tight ends.
Yep.
Like it might just be like little 5-yard outs, whatever
Slides.
it is.
The ones the we just call them hides, where the tight end actually engages with a block for a second
and then just slips away.
And then, oh, look at this, I'm out in the route, and everybody already accounted me as a blocker, and no one's running with me. 4 yards, right? Those and if you're running the ball a ton with Omarion Hampton, when your tight end engages in a block, you're going to treat him as a blocker because you got bigger things to take care of. You got to go try to tackle Omarion Hampton. There's you can be a changeup in college football, which all football is copycat. Everybody ends up doing what the best teams do, and it seems like everybody's running a very similar spread offense. Don't be afraid to say, hey, we're going with the 1993 Cowboys run package with a running quarterback. Right? We're going to give Emmitt Smith the ball 30 times a game, only we're going to have a guy that runs a 4.4 at quarterback too, which imagine if Aikman could jiggy. Seemed like a little bit of a statue back in the day. The Drive with Tim Donnelly, 99.9 The Fan. Let's jump to NC State. The collection of information against Western Carolina takes us into Game 2. What are we now predicting for NC State as part of our football predictions spectacular? I'm so far in on the Wolfpack pass catchers. I'm going to make a bold prediction about NC State's season coming up at the end of this.
Okay.
But first, I want to explain the 3 players it's going to involve. Casey Concepcion, what can I say that hasn't been said? Big man on campus, 3 touchdowns in week 1, coming off one of the best freshman wide receiver seasons we've seen. Dude's legit. Noah Rogers is going to pop some big plays. I'm just going to say that he could have had a few against Western Carolina, but he and Grayson McCall were just a hint off. I think they get on page for some of those. I think he had 53 receiving yards, 43, something like that. He's 2 yards off from having 100 yards. I think he's going to have a awesome season. And Justin Jolie is going to make me look real smart for how much I hyped him up in the preseason. Maybe even be better than I was hyping him up. Those 3 guys, here's what I'm saying now. And this, by the way, this is not saying that NC State is going to live up to expectations as a team. But I think all 3 of those guys will be 1,000-yard receivers, which is rare in NCAA history. It has happened in history. Fresno State in 2013, I looked up some of the examples, which had Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. Houston in 2009, which had Case Keenum. Hawaii in 2007, the Colt Brennan years. Texas Tech in 2003, that's when Wes Welker was there. So it has been done. This team, I think we could easily, like with those examples 10 years from now, be going, oh, and State did it in 24. That was when Casey Concepcion and Noah Rogers were there, and they'd both be, draft picks and well into their NFL career by then. And secondarily, this is why I say this isn't, for those of you saying this is like a homer pick for State, the defense didn't look as stout as it has in the past against Western Carolina, which means the offense is going to have to sling it probably more than Dave Doeren wants to, which is just more opportunity for them to rack up stats. So it's not all good. I'm not predicting, and we'll get to predictions on this. I'm not predicting a win against Tennessee with this prediction. I'm not predicting an ACC championship with this prediction. I'm predicting those three dudes, Concepcion, Rogers, and Jolie, they're as good as advertised and maybe better.
Oh, yeah, they're good.
Anything?
They looked the part.
Oh, heck yeah.
100% looked the part. The only thing with their offense that was, like, the reads by Grayson McCall were correct. Like, they were the right reads. Like, he was just a little off with his accuracy. That's all it was. And one thing that, as well, that I'm sure Dave Doeren and Robert and I are going to fix is that they did not get north-south when it came to running the football. Anytime Jordan Waters got the ball in the backfield, it felt like his first step was lateral. It's like, when he started actually first step forward towards the line of scrimmage, that's when he started getting some big runs.
You'll appreciate this. Mm-hmm. Early on, it looked like he was trying to do this. I'm not saying he was doing this, but the Le'Veon Bell thing.
Yes.
Where Le'Veon Bell would take the handoff and would almost pause. Mm-hmm. Like his controller got disconnected in the backfield.
Yep.
And then you'd plug it back in and he'd take off. It looked like Jordan Waters was doing some of that. And then you're right. Once he got more into like the, let me think of the best, like an Arian Foster mode, to use another reference that, if you're younger than 20, you might not get. He would put his foot in the ground, go north-south. I think that's better for Jordan Waters. But going back to what you said about the accuracy of Grayson McCall, this is one of my favorite things to do with sports is because obviously I do dabble in gambling, which it's the football prediction spectacular, so that probably hints a little bit. I love to look at teams that were off and recognize that the thing that they were off at that's driving down expectations is something that's pretty proven. Like if tonight's game, right? Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, if the Chiefs lose and Travis Kelce has 3 drops, everybody's going to be down on the Chiefs, right? And, oh, no, is this it? And I'm going to be sitting there going, I'm pretty sure we're pretty confident as a unit here that Travis Kelce knows how to catch. Mm-hmm. And he's not just suddenly forgot. He has had a bad day. Grayson McCall has been in college for 5 seasons. He's completed 70% of his career passes.
He's played a lot of football. I'm
assuming he's not suddenly forgot how to throw an accurate pass. He was off particularly early for NC State. I'm going to lean towards them bouncing back in that respect. I'd be more concerned about offensive line, more concerned about some of the things on the defense. I'm not going to sit here and predict like after that game, Grayson McCall suddenly not a great completions guy. Which, by the way, he did have a 65% completion. I think the accuracy wasn't necessarily causing a bunch of incompletions. They were hurting yards after the catch because guys had to slow down and make tough catches. And also the maybe more splashy plays were inaccurate. Balls down the field, guys open, missing by a yard or two. I think he'll correct that. So I'm not as worried about his inaccuracy in week 1 because we have 5 years saying he's an accurate quarterback.
Yeah.
If
it's all fixable stuff.
If the quite frankly, outside of Casey Concepcion, not many of the pass catchers have a ton of college game experience. Justin Jolie does it at UConn. Pretty much everyone else is new. Or Wesley Grimes had a little in Wake Forest.
Yeah, I think he started every game last season, but he only caught like 4 passes.
That
was also a
quarterback had something
situation.
To do with that. So if they had a really bad day, I would be more concerned than if Grayson McCall had a really bad day because they don't have 5 years of evidence on the field of being pretty darn good, or at least pretty darn accurate. Quality we can always debate.